Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. I'm Patricia Modis, and I'm your host, a Filipino American, native New Yorker, currently based in Los Angeles, bulldog mama, and an uncommon occupational therapist myself for the past 22 years. On this podcast, you will hear me proudly feature the unique careers of occupational therapy practitioners working in non-traditional and role-emerging practice areas, settings where OT is uncommon. I invite you to receive a dose of OT inspiration, to learn, to think outside of the box, and to be energized and motivated to follow in these unconventional paths. Happy listening! Welcome back, OT friends. Today I am excited to introduce you to our guest of honor, Asia Black. Asia is an occupational therapy practitioner who works with the federal government as an ergonomics program manager. And she's here to tell us all about that role. Welcome to the podcast, Asia.
Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled that you're here. Your niche is already very special as it is,
Mhm.
ergonomics, right? Setting up ergonomic programs for the federal government is a whole nother, I think,
Ballpark, yeah.
side thing here that we need to delve into a little bit. And I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for being here to share with us your niche.
Yes, no problem. I'm excited.
Oh, I'd love for you to get us started by, yeah, just maybe telling us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your favorite occupations, perhaps.
So again, my name is Aja Black. I am a certified occupational therapy assistant, and I'm also a newly certified associate ergonomist. In both of the roles, I'm able to help people live and work better, so they tie in hand in hand. I'm originally from Sumter, South Carolina, but I currently live in Maryland, but I work in Washington, D.C. So I'm back and forth through the DMV pretty often. I've been a practitioner now for 4 years, and most of my time was spent in pediatrics. And so I worked a lot with developmental delays, independence, and participation with children in the school setting. And that was probably one of my favorite settings to work in. But over the past 2 years, I've been diving into ergonomics and applying the principles and standards for the federal workforce. And I've had the opportunity to deliver lectures and figure out ways to design better working environments so that people can work as healthy and really promote their overall well-being. Some of my favorite pastimes and occupations, I like copywriting. So whether that be like with
Mm.
marketing and things like that, I have put that on the back burner to really focus on this stage that I'm in right now. Also enjoy working out, traveling. I was a plant parent, but they didn't survive the DMV cold, so I'm going to get that started again. And also really making time for rest and sleep and recovery. That's my new favorite occupation.
Occupational balance, right?
Yes,
How key that is.
exactly.
Oh, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. A few things that came to mind. I don't know if you've had the chance to listen to another episode that I have on the podcast, but it's with Krista Fromm, and she's actually an OT who specializes in copywriting.
Oh, wow. I did see that on your website. I didn't listen to the episode, but I did read her bio. So I did see that.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely someone to connect with if that's
Yes.
kind of something that you're into, right? And
Mhm.
I love that because it's just an example of how, you are doing something already quite uncommon, but you still have other interests that are also uncommon that you can
Exactly.
cultivate.
Everything's uncommon. So
So, what motivated you to contribute to the podcast? I know I invited you on,
Mhm.
but was there anything in particular that motivated you to come join us?
Yeah, so the title itself, with the word uncommon, I think that word describes my journey into ergonomics and the role that I'm in now. And more specifically, the skills that I carried over as an ergonomics program manager was heavily based on my experience as an occupational therapy practitioner. And so while I did studies and while I did a lot of reading to try to figure out how to be the best program manager or to study ergonomics, I was operating as an occupational therapy assistant, all those skills, all
Mm.
those tools that I had. And so, though a lot of it was on my own, it was a non-traditional setting. It was uncommon. And so that was my green light. Like, let me share it to the masses of how it's possible to do. And so I don't think that a lot of occupational therapy practitioners on all levels are aware of how broad and adaptable our skills are. And
Mm-hmm.
we are really equipped to serve diverse populations and more various roles and even roles of leadership. Because again, I'm an occupational therapy assistant building programs for the government. So
Yeah.
that, that kind of shows that we are really skilled and so I try to share this insight when I do lectures and when I do webinars so that people know the skills that they have and how that they can carry those skills into new settings. But this podcast I felt was a really good opportunity, and it's actually way more accessible. So people can find it on different means. That's how it's on YouTube and Spotify, different podcast settings, so that the word can spread a lot further with more outreach.
Yes, absolutely. And we couldn't have found a more perfect candidate or guest to have to speak of all of this because your career speaks to all of that. So
Mhm.
thanks again for being here and for
No
sharing
problem.
about, about some of that motivation.
Mhm.
This might be a really good time for me to ask you to describe for us your uncommon OT work. Would you mind describing for us, the setting where you practice, whom you serve, who's the population that you serve? And what
Okay.
are some of the needs that you're addressing over there?
Gotcha. So, as the ergonomics program manager, I provide in-person and virtual ergonomic evaluations for federal employees. And so, my goal is to help them assess their working environments. I really try to promote independence. So if there's ways that they can implement assessments by themselves to kind of pick up what's not feeling right, or different small changes they can make, I try to teach them that. But my goal is to design and create working environments that support safety, comfort, and efficiency. And so the assessments are tailored to a wide range of settings because where I do work, there are employees that are in the office and there are also employees that are doing field work. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have to be available to all of them and to assess their needs and what their concerns are. And so I try to offer practical and evidence-based recommendations, emphasis on the evidence-based. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
grabbing things out of my head, but really trying to reduce their strain, prevent any injury, and improve their overall functions. And so, along with the evaluations, I'm required to do webinars. And so, I do two per month, and they're on topics that I decide to research and inform the federal workforce with. And so, these range based on the concerns that I get.
Mm-hmm.
So if a lot of people are having concerns with um, their back, then I will do research and try to figure out how to educate them on different things they can implement to support their back and return to work and psychosocial ergonomics, different things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um, and so a few other examples of webinars that I've done. I've looked at how driving and the vibrations can impact your nervous system over time, ergonomics in the digital age, so how our daily habits with technology can impact our musculoskeletal system.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like the more standard things like standard office equipment. So where should your monitor be? How high should your desk be, etc. And then uh, my webinars have led me to do lectures. And
Mm-hmm.
so, mostly with occupational therapy based programs, I've done from the bachelor level to doctorate level to cover what ergonomics is and what it looks like from a practitioner's level. I know that there are a few occupational therapy practitioners that focus on ergonomics, but there aren't many COTAs or certified
Hmm.
therapy assistants that do it. And there's not a lot of information on what that actually looks like how to get into it, different things that you can do to transition into that setting. And so,
Hmm.
because I figured it out and I found a method that works, I try to share that information as much as possible so that people can experience ergonomics if they're interested in it.
I love it.
Mhm.
You talked about, when I think about ergonomics, I think about space, right? Your workspace. And you
Right.
mentioned equipment. That's also probably the next thing that comes to mind.
Mhm.
But you also mentioned psychosocial ergonomics. Can you speak to that for
Yeah.
a moment?
Yes. So psychosocial ergonomics is probably my favorite area of ergonomics, mostly because when I read it and I was doing my research to study for my exam, it made ergonomics a holistic thing. So
Hmm.
looking at not only the equipment and the environment of the worker, but how things that we cannot control sometimes can affect our work. So if you are working a job, for example, where you don't have clear roles, you don't feel supported, you have really tight deadlines, you're doing the work of 4 to 5 people, that can impact you psychosocially. So mental health, you're experiencing more stress, you have very low morale, but then also it puts you at an increased risk for musculoskeletal disorders. So you will experience more shoulder pain and more neck
Hmm.
pain and more back pain. And that can be tied to the idea that we carry stress in those areas, but more importantly, how you sit or what your posture is like while you are feeling these negative feelings or these negative effects of stress. And so there are some employees that experience back pain and they're using the best ergonomic chair possible. But because of the psychosocial risk factors they experience at work, they sit in awkward postures for prolonged periods and for certain frequency and duration. And it causes musculoskeletal injuries as if they were not being adequately supported by the equipment itself.
Yes.
So that's a webinar that I've done before for the federal workforce, but I'm doing it again soon, actually tomorrow, um, to educate everyone about it because I think more people need to be aware about it. Ergonomics goes a lot further than the chair that you're sitting in and the monitor that you're
Yes.
looking at. It can start in your brain sometimes. So,
Hmm.
hmm.
Well, thanks for making that distinction. I absolutely find that fascinating. And of
Oh,
course, I see it, right? And
mhm.
I absolutely see why it's almost like an OT's lens when an OT looks into the idea of ergonomics, right? We're looking at all of those different aspects.
Exactly, with everything. And it's not just the work, sometimes the stressors or the psychosocial effects that people carry into work aren't necessarily even dealing with work. Sometimes it's things that happen at home that they carry into. And so, with the holistic approach, we want to know everything that could be factoring into what this person is experiencing. And it was just so great to see that in ergonomics with the holistic approach.
And I love that you are there, an OT practitioner,
Yes.
telling everyone all about it, right? This is
Mhm.
like really, really cool. So, what drew you to this type of work? Was there anything specific that inspired you to do this kind of work?
So I often tell people that my journey into ergonomics was not typical, atypical, maybe uncommon, some
Uncommon.
would say. Um, but it was an experience that forced me to learn quickly and adapt even quicker. And so that was a great skill that I thought I possessed already, but needed some fine tuning. Um, and so while I didn't initially see ergonomics to be OT kind of
Hmm.
related, the more I had to do studies by myself and the more I had to learn and apply and implement, I realized that I'm doing some of the same things just in a different setting. And so connecting the dots, like, okay, a task analysis is what I used to do in classrooms when I was working as an OTA
Hmm.
to report to the OTR to let them know what I saw. But now I'm in this office setting with adults and I'm doing a task analysis. but I just don't have anybody to report to because it just goes to me. So
Yeah.
there's skills that I was doing when I was solely focused on occupational therapy that I started doing the ergonomics, and realized that they're really closely related. They're
Hmm.
really closely related. It's almost like an extension in a sense.
Yeah.
So if no matter what setting you are doing in occupational therapy right now, there are some ergonomic principles that you're implementing, but you just don't know. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's automatic.
It's like automatic. Once you're
Yeah.
able to connect those dots, you'll realize that it's not necessarily a different, it has a different title, but it's just a skill carryover. So
Yeah.
I'm still doing OT work, how I
You
feel.
are. You're
Hmm.
still using the same lens. You're still using the same principles,
Yes,
just a different setting and a different population.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So can you describe to us how you pivoted? I know you talked about pivoting into ergonomics. It was not a common, route. But
Mhm.
how did you get there? Can you describe for us a little bit your path?
Yes. So, um, I guess to give you the full path, I have to start from the beginning. So, another common introduction into occupational therapy. In most cases, when somebody majors in exercise science, their thought is they're going to be a physical therapist. That's
Yes.
kind of like the pipeline.
Mhm.
And so, in my undergraduate studies, I was recommended to try OT, just based off of the rate of acceptance of physical therapy. And
Mm.
so that was hard to process at the time because I had already put all my eggs in that basket. But over time, that was the best thing that I think that person could have told me was no, which is fine. I didn't see it then.
Yes.
Now I can see it. So after I got my bachelor's from the University of South Carolina upstate, I went to Kaiser University in Jacksonville and I got my associate science in occupational therapy. And so I tried different settings. I tried sniffs, I tried outpatient. Um, Sniff was a little different for me because it was post-COVID. So as things were
Mm.
opening up, so being a new practitioner, shortage of staff, you can imagine I was like, it was
Wow.
all over the place. But eventually I found myself in the school setting. And so the schools that I worked in, at times I was serving three schools by myself. And a lot of the tools or a lot of the recommendations I had to make either required me to have to do research or go to Dollar Tree. Like I was spending my paychecks at the Dollar Tree all the time trying to make things happen. But a lot of it
Hmm.
do with seating and the desk and their posture. So
Yeah.
looking back, I was able to see that I was doing ergonomic work, just
Yes.
didn't realize it. But like most practitioners, I was experiencing burnout. And I just did a quick LinkedIn revamp. And I wanted all of the words on my LinkedIn to start with the same letter. So I put ergonomics, education, and entrepreneurship because at the time I was copywriting, I was giving out education. And after looking at the word ergonomics, I was like, I kind of do that. Kind of, not
Hmm.
really sure. And I was contacted for the job that I currently have now. So, um, the recruiter,
Because you had that on your.
because I had it on my LinkedIn.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good
Yeah.
to
And
know.
so they said, hey, we think you'd be a good fit. A recruiter did. And I was like, okay, sure. At the time, I saw that 94 people applied for it. And I was like,
Oh.
why not? Let's just do it. Why not? Got it. And then I was like, okay, now you actually have to do it. And so, so while I was thinking of it like this really big change I was going to have to make, I had to keep thinking about the recruiter that told me, you do the work, you just need to pull it. You just need to pull
Yeah.
it. So, um, while I stepped in and I only had a foundational understanding of it, and I didn't have any direct experience in ergonomics. I just knew that I
Hmm.
was a OTA. That's it.
Yeah.
But while I was learning and studying and applying and also building my confidence, because of course, if I wasn't capable, I wouldn't have gotten the job. That's how I
Exactly.
see it.
Hmm.
And so it pushed me in ways to grow that I never anticipated. It definitely wasn't the easiest, but it has been very rewarding. And so it's opened up a lot more doors, and that's like my sign that I'm where I'm supposed to be at. Like, I believe that
Ah,
alignment is just confirmation that you're doing something right. Even if you don't know exactly what you're doing right, when things start aligning, you just stay on that path.
yes.
So it just kind of reinforces just how broad our profession is and how impactful our profession can be.
Mm. I give that advice all the time. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's just
Mm-mm.
taking kind of like putting one foot in front of the other. And in that process, things happen. And
Right.
in that process, when those things are happening, that's when decisions are affirmed, moves are, validated,
Right.
right? And it's so hard to describe that, but you kind of have to allow for that to happen.
You
Because
do.
if you don't, and if you kind of, uh, stay away
Right.
from it or just kind of take a step back or let it discourage you, then that's in fact preventing you from moving forward because that's where you kind of get stuck, right? So,
Exactly.
I love that you said that. And I love that that's the trajectory, right? That's kind of what led you to where you are. I mean, it was a
Mhm.
simple LinkedIn, bio
Yeah.
phrasing change.
Hmm.
And it caught someone's eye, right? Because I hear about that a lot too, these recruiters and what are they looking for? So
Right.
I'm so glad that this came up because
Hmm. And
I
in
you could have had the same skills and not had changed that, and maybe you wouldn't have caught their attention.
exactly. And in full like transparency, again, I looked at the word. I just needed another E word. That's it. So I was like,
It could have been like energetic or yeah.
it could have been anything, but I chose ergon. I didn't even know they were looking for that role. I just revamped it to try to find something. Because initially, when the recruiter contacted me, he thought that I was still living in North Carolina. He didn't even know that I was in Maryland at the time. So, a LinkedIn is probably my favorite social media app. There's a lot of opportunities there if you know how to use it right. Cracking the code is
Yes,
always easy, but once you kind of know how to maneuver LinkedIn, there's so many opportunities there.
there are. I've met, I would say maybe half of my podcast guests on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm really not shy about just like I reached out to you. I'm
Right.
really not shy about just like reaching out. And if I don't hear back, oh well, maybe you're really busy. A lot of
Right.
OTs are really busy, but I don't take it personally. And
Mhm.
the response rate has been really great.
That's,
And it's because of LinkedIn, right? Because here you are, you contact someone, you get to see what they're all about based on their profile, but then they
right.
also get to see what you're all about when they check you out before they even get back to you. So I think
Uh-huh.
it's a great way to just kind of introduce yourself
Right.
to anyone,
It
work
is.
related for that matter.
At some point, too, your profile can kind of speak for itself. So you don't have to give a full elevator speech about who you are and what you do. It's just, a message just reaching out. And then, like everyone, you just scroll on their LinkedIn and just see what they're doing, where they went to school, their most
Yes.
oh, just browsing.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
love it too. I'm a big fan of the platform and, do a lot of promotion there because that's where I think I have most of my OT contacts.
Hmm.
So thanks so much for, adding some of that. I was wondering if maybe now you can describe for us what like a typical day might be like for you. What is like either a typical session? And I know you touched upon some of this already, but are there any specific OT skills that kind of you feel like you utilize often in this role?
Yes. So, an overview of my day involves a lot of communication. And that's another skill that I've had to refine. I wouldn't say that I'm a quiet person, but I usually don't have much to say. So sometimes getting to work at 8 a.m. and having a call has been an adjustment, but I'm working through it. Communication has been really big amongst my team, amongst different people throughout the sectors, and people that I work with in general. So I typically start my mornings with a check-in with the team or the people that I work with, checking if there are any immediate updates in my email or through the platforms that we use. And then I go over my calendar to see how many evaluations I have for the day or if I have any new requests. And so something that I have to add is that though I'm located for one department, I am available to all federal workers regardless of the department. So I have to check my emails, my spam sometimes. Like I have to get really, really detailed with checking in the mornings just to make sure that I don't miss anything. But the bulk of my day just really depends on the day. So some days it's divided between doing evaluations virtually and then some in person. And those are the days where I meet my step count on my Apple. I started wearing my Apple Watch to work because I move so much. Other time throughout the day, I dedicate to either reading or researching or writing because I still have to do the webinar. So I have to see
Hmm.
trends and topics so that I can provide the education. Because there's one thing to put the webinar together, but to be able to present it and know what you're talking about, that's a whole nother ballpark.
Yes, it is.
And so, some of the other areas of writing that I have to do include me having to write like detailed evaluation reports. Um, and those are very client centered, and I try to make them as client centered as possible. So it takes me a lot longer than many others would think
Hmm.
because I just have that occupational therapy mindset. I can't give
Yes.
you what I gave somebody else because you have the same thing. And so I'm trying to
Yes.
be as detailed as possible, and I'm asking so many questions and trying to implement those into the reports. Um, it is a role that requires a lot of technical expertise and then a lot of interpersonal skills. And so that continues in full transparency to challenge me, inspire me daily because there's just me and I have to be available for
Hmm.
a lot of people.
Yes.
So I will just chalk it up to growing pains. They're making me a better person. I can communicate with anybody now, I feel like.
Now, right? Or
Yeah,
probably run any kind of webinar.
any kind of
So,
webinar. Mhm.
I mean, okay, so I wrote down communication is huge.
Yes.
I also wrote team. Are there other occupational therapy practitioners as part of the team?
No, they're not. So it's just me as an occupational therapy practitioner. Some members of the team have worked in school settings, so they understand the value of OT, and I'm able to relate with them. To some degree, we've had conversations, and we realized that we would be an IEP team if we were in together
Yeah.
because of the roles that we did.
Yeah.
But as for occupational therapy itself, it's just me. I'm the only one with that background. And so some of the skills that I pull from OT are empathy, and empathy is a skill. That is
Hmm.
a skill. I didn't think it was a skill, but it is a skill. Like you have to actively practice it and actively choose to use it. Some other ones would be like range of motion, and that actually looks like a ruler,
Hmm.
which looks at
It's an
range.
acronym.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an acronym, but it looks at range of motion and how that's affecting you ergonomically. As an OTA, treatment planning, and again, me trying to be as client-centered as possible in looking at the person themselves
Yeah.
holistically, and how can I be as detailed as possible for this one individual. Clinical reasoning, this helped me a lot in the earlier stages of my tenure because I, again, was studying ergonomics, applying and implementing at the same time. So sometimes things just didn't look right. And I had clinical reasoning to say, this is why I don't think that makes sense.
Hmm.
I don't think that this is working for you. I'm going to go back and research it to confirm, but this is why I think it's not working. And most times I was pretty accurate. And then again, observations, really important because as an OTA, I was not able to do evaluations unless I established service competency. And so in this role now, I don't touch anyone. It's really hands off, observation, task analysis. So those are skills that I pull directly from OT into my current role.
Yeah. So love that. I know you talked about the federal government as being your caseload, basically. And
Yeah.
I was like, man, it's a lot of people. It's a whole lot of employees. Well, maybe not right now with the furlough,
Mhm.
but
Yes.
but like time management has got to be one of the top skills that you need to kind of master, right?
Yes. Time management and verbal and written communication. I think those would be to top, I guess we could say two or three if you want to put verbal
Yeah.
um, and written separately. But
Written.
yes,
Okay.
time management is so important. Um, Not only just in work from the 8 to 4 that I do this, but even outside of that, because I still have to make time to eat
Yeah.
and take
Or
care of my apartment and different things like that. So time management is super important.
yes.
Mhm.
And you talked about, I like that there's different dimensions to your work too. So kind of like a clinic. So you work with people one-on-one, right? And you do
Mhm.
evals and you write up your evaluations to these reports.
Yeah.
And then you also have webinars, which will, I guess, count as sort of like groups, right? Like those are your virtual groups or sometimes maybe in person.
Yes.
Are there any sort of OT assessments that you use? Other than, you mentioned RULA, that being very specific to range of motion,
Mhm.
like, and I'm thinking maybe like COPAM or, something a little bit more like psychosocial based.
No, so there are no OT assessments that I use. The ones that I could think about that established service competency in were more written based. So looking
Okay,
at grasp and school based for like placement, but no OT assessments that I use in my current role.
got it.
Mhm.
Okay, very nice. Are you able to share with us, uh, some recent challenges and maybe some recent successes in your current role?
Yes, I'll start with the bad first and then we'll end with the good.
I think I know what that's going to be.
Yeah, it is. Um, so this role has come with a lot of challenges. So the first being that I completed my studies independently. So learning a field that I had a foundational understanding of, but having to pass a national kind of base certification exam was a lot. And so again, I'm studying, learning, applying, and implementing for people in real time. And so
Hmm.
that was a pretty challenging chapter in my life. Um, at times it did feel kind of isolating because ergonomics is pretty niche. So I don't have a lot of contacts of people that I can ask questions to. And there are still things that are being required of me. It happened really quickly, the transition into my role, because literally one day I was school-based, which is actually how I ended up in Maryland, a school-based role. And I had supervisors that I was reporting to. And then literally the next day I was building programs and making like really key important decisions in the on the government level. And so that was a brain, I don't know what to call it. It just really it caused a lot of imposter syndrome. I will say that for at least a year, where I was like, "Am I even qualified to do this? What am I doing? Are people taking me serious?" I'm so used to being in a role where I report to someone, and now people are coming to me. So I'm like,
Ah,
they
so
know.
how did you manage that? How did you, deal with the imposter syndrome and sort of the uncertainty or just not being sure? No, I guess, part of it may have also been that you didn't have too much guidance, right? And
Right.
needed that guidance.
Yeah, so I was in therapy at the time, and so I talked a lot about it there. And
Okay,
I
good.
was reassured that way. My team that I worked with was also very reassuring. And one of my team members pulled me into the office one day and he said, Aja, everyone believes that you're supposed to be here except for you.
Mm.
And I was like, you're right. I'm the hurdle. That's what I mean. I was like, I'm the obstacle in my own way. And so from there, I just had to actively make myself believe that I was
Mhm.
there and accept the reality. Yes, Adria, you were here because
You belong here.
belong here. I think a lot of it too, I was thinking about what this means not only for myself, but for my family back home. They can brag. Sometimes people are telling people I worked at the White House, which is not true. But it was just so big, people
Hey,
were so smart.
whatever. Close
Whatever,
enough.
close enough down the street. So that was a really big one. And then What also really helped me was I saw that what I was doing was making a difference. And so I would get emails from people that I would work with, and they would tell me that they were remote employees. And when I had webinars, they would grab their mother in their 80s because their mother liked to listen to my webinars. And there were things that happened to her when she was a child and she wasn't able to get care for it. And maybe that's the reason that she's experiencing, or people would tell me, they would become very open post
Mhm.
webinar and they just wanted to say, thank you so much for covering. It seems like you really care about what's going on. And I was like, wow, I do actually. But
Yeah.
and so that helped me a lot get over the imposter syndrome of you are here and you are clearly making a difference. So
Yeah, it sounded like you were needed and that they needed you there. And
yeah, I'd like to think that too. I would like to think that too. I don't think that things happen by coincidence or by mistake. And so it was the empathy I think that I brought there. 'Cause
yeah,
sometimes ergonomics can be tied closely to engineering and they're very rigid, just,
yes.
very science, very like evidence, this is ground. But I would just listen to people and I'd let them go off and steer off into other conversations and I'd redirect them back to it, but I would never, chop them off and just cut them off short. So, um,
Well, spoken like a true OT, right? Really
yeah, exactly.
understanding the connection and
Right.
how those systems affect each other.
They do, they tie in. And so I'm just like, okay, I can't I cannot cut this person off and fully make recommendations for them. One of the questions that I asked somebody during evaluation, they needed wrist support because they had carpal tunnel. And I asked him, I said, do you have any texture sensitivities? And she said, yes, I hate gel. She was like, nobody thinks to ask that. And I was like, they make other fabrics for that. Or I asked them, if they felt comfortable, if they wanted to share any of their specific diagnosis. And so while this ergonomic chair could work for them, this person has ADHD. So they're prone to fidget because, things don't stop in pediatrics, it goes
Yes.
into adulthood. And so I was
Yes.
making those client-centered ones and I would get really good feedback on the evaluations and the webinars. And it was just making it so much more personable um, for the people that attended or the people that reached out to me.
I love that.
Yes.
Absolutely love that.
So some of the highs, personal and professional highs, one of them is that I have been creating and setting new standards for the program that I manage, and it's been around, I think, longer than I've been alive. So that's a really big deal.
It is.
It is a big deal. And so the data is measurable, which I think makes a big difference. So I'm not just, boasting or gloating. No, it's written. There's evidence to prove it. And so that just shows
Hmm.
me the growth that comes from the work, but also as I became more confident, it showed in the data. And since December, and I told you communication was something, I'm not a very talkative person. I wasn't a very talkative person. Um,
Look at you now.
I know, just to chat about. So since December 2024, I've done about 11 speaking engagements. And so that includes like being a guest speaker, being a panelist, lecturer, pinning ceremonies. And that's a really big deal. My family is shocked about that one because again, I'm not mute, but I usually don't have much to say. And so to be doing public speaking and in front of anywhere to 25 to hundreds of people depending on like the setting from in person to webinar. That's really cool for me.
Oh.
Personal pat on the back.
Well,
Um
I think you're so good at it. I
oh,
know,
thank you.
it's a, but you're, yeah, just in our communication right now, you're such an
Uh,
eloquent speaker. And I don't know, I tell my students that all the time. I wasn't born this way. I wasn't
yeah.
born like talking like this, like the way that I speak. Like it took years for this to happen. But what really helps with that formation is practice, right?
Practice.
So,
Sometimes you just have to get thrown into things and you just have to do it. And you just, if it's not your best, okay, learn from it and just keep it pushing. That's how I've really seen it. Another highlight is that I'm in grad school, so I'm a student in Georgia Tech's professional occupational safety and health program. And so, again, in that setting, I'm the only one that has an ergonomics background. So, um, that's cool. A lot of people were asking me questions when I first met them about, what does this look like in the safety world? Or I have questions. So it was great to know that the research I had done, I was able to speak on in that moment, meeting these strangers who are now a part of the cohort and will be together for the next 2 years. Um, one of the program directors, or the program director it's himself, excuse me, said that he heard about my program and heard good things about it. And so that was a really big deal because I'm like, oh, who's talking about it? And what I was talking about.
There's a buzz.
There's a
Yay.
buzz. And so he even knew that at one point there was a pause in the program, which was just the change of program managers. But he said he heard great things about it. And I was like, wow, like thanks, because it's literally just me. Um,
Yes.
and so I guess the most recent one is that I joined AOTA's new innovative practice special interest section. And so I'm
Yay.
committed to advancing the field for occupational therapy and then also just for occupational therapy assistants, because the world is just as broad for us as well.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's another, you know, big reason why I thought it was so important to have you on the podcast was to be that voice for OT assistants whom I admire tremendously. I've had the opportunity, fortune, really, good
Mhm.
fortune of being able to work alongside, OTAs throughout my career that have really just helped my professional learning.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I want other OTAs to hear all about your story and perhaps, be inspired and see how they can also follow your path.
Yeah. I always tell people that I will answer questions. With the lectures that I do, sometimes the students reach out to me personally, and I will set up a Zoom call and I will answer, whatever questions that I have or try to give whatever resources that I have. Because I feel like if I've done the dirty work, I shouldn't hand that off to someone else. If I've done the work and I have the resources, I'm more than happy to always share them.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
have a feeling some folks will be in touch with you about this. Um, Thank you for sharing some of those highs and some of those lows. And it might be, you know, important to mention that during this time that we're conducting this actual podcast interview,
Yeah.
or the federal government is currently closed. Would you like to speak to that a little bit and how that has affected you, sort of, your money matters?
Um, yes, I guess first I just want to touch on again the psychosocial effect of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I told you, I was meeting my 10,000 step count days at a time, and then now I'm just paused. And so that was a really big whirlwind for me because I'm just so used to being a busybody. I have a call, I have an evaluation, I'm studying. And while I, again, don't believe in coincidences, it was a very hard stop for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the financial part of it, because I'm a federal contractor, it looks a little bit different for me
Mm-hmm.
and what you may see for federal workers. But
Yeah.
overall, of course, it's impacting financially. And so I'm hoping things change soon. I want to stay optimistic, but I also want to be realistic at all times. And
Yes.
so it has allowed me to kind of pour into myself and try to find other means and try to put things together so that I can create another source of income by giving information or trying to find ways to still promote ergonomics because though
Mm-hmm.
federal workers currently don't have access to it, private sectors are still working. They're still a working community of people. And so, yeah, it's been a pause, but I, again, don't believe in mistakes. And so I'm just keeping myself busy and trying to find other means to support
Yes.
myself. Mhm.
And if there's anyone who can do it, I believe you can, because you
Thank you.
pivoted into this role, right? In like such an amazing way. Um, I think it's
hopefully just a matter of time until our government agrees and figures it out, and you can be back in your role where you're very much needed.
Yes, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
So otherwise, right,
Mhm.
how are typically your services funded? I know you mentioned that you were a contractor for the federal government. Is there
Mhm.
anything you can share with us about that, just for our listeners and just as far as like funding your
Yeah.
service is concerned?
Gotcha. So mine again looks a little different because I'm a federal contractor. And so there's a side of that that I'm not aware of, just because of how the things are put together. And so I am salaried. And so that's great because, again, working in schools, there was a lot of breaks and there's a lot of summer breaks. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't get paid as a
Yes.
school-based, unless you're salaried through the district. And so that was a great change for me. That I was super appreciative of being salaried in a role where I could actually work. For some ergonomists, they typically do more consultant-based work, so they're in charge of their own rates, and typically they make more doing it that way because they are in charge of their time and how much they want to charge. Also, they have a lot more flexibility and autonomy. And so, both I think are great options and great salaries for occupational therapy practitioners and specifically for OTA level.
Mm-hmm.
Because though now I'm certified, when I was not certified, I probably made more on an OTR level of
Mm-hmm.
salary doing ergonomics work. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, for some people that do consultant work, they might take direct pay or they bill through insurance, or maybe they'll get contracts through companies to be
Mm-hmm.
point of contact. So it looks different. There are a lot of options for ergonomics,
And ways to
specifically
get
with
paid, it sounds
consulting.
like. Yeah.
There are.
Very nice. Good to know. And that might kind of be a nice segue into my next question, which is about advice. Right?
Yes.
Do you have any career advice for any of our listeners who may want to get started on the same path?
Yes, I have three. The first is to just always say yes and figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes opportunities will present themselves, and it's an opportunity for you to grow, and you won't know it unless you say yes. Um, you have to say yes. If you say no because of fear and not knowing and doubting yourselves, you're not only robbing yourself of the opportunity, but you're also kind of robbing the population that you may be able to impact. Sometimes people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And so you just say yes. When I did my first OTD lecture in at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Dr. Aldridge reached out to me. And while I had already done a lecture, something about seeing OTD just made me say, "Ooh, I don't know about that."
Uh-huh.
Doctorate level. I just did no, bachelor level, but I said I only have an associate's in it. So there's nothing that I could really say to a doctorate level cohort,
Mm-hmm.
understand. But I did it. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go to Florida. It was really cold here in DC too. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm gonna
Oh, it was in person.
was in
Amazing.
person.
Okay.
Yeah, she offered initially virtual, but I had never been to Fort Lauderdale. And so my mom also at the time, she knew what I did, but she didn't really understand it. So I made it a trip. I invited my mom with me so that she could
Oh,
be in the
great.
audience and watch me lecture.
Oh, that must have been so
Yeah,
special.
it was. She cried the whole time. Hey, we're at work. You can't cry. So,
Oh,
but
how
Dr.
sweet.
Aldridge, yeah, Dr. Aldridge recommended a book when I went to see her, and she was super hospitable. She picked me and my mom up from our hotel, gave us food recommendations, but she suggested The Year of Yes, How to Dance It Out, Stand in the Sun and Be Your Own Person by Shonda Rhimes. And so I listened to that audiobook. And had I not taken that yes, I wouldn't have gotten that recommendation for that book. and I wouldn't have said yes to every other thing that came my way. And so while I wasn't fully prepared, or I didn't think I was fully prepared, I still showed up.
Hmm.
Another OT skill, I did backwards chaining. I started at the end, going backwards to figure it out. Um, and so I'm constantly reminding myself that I don't know everything and I never will. And that is okay. You can figure it
Yes,
out along the way. So that would be the first one.
great advice.
Mhm. The second one would be to trust the process. And that's really cliche to say, but if it weren't true and if more people knew it, then we wouldn't be saying it as much as we do. I think so. So whenever I found myself in situations where I felt like I was left to figure it out by myself, I would always take it negative. Like I would always see it from a negative lens.
Hmm.
But something shifted just within this job to where if you're called to an area or a space where there is nothing, like you're in the middle of a desert, but there's very specific things that are asked of you, you might just be more of a pioneer or a trailblazer versus someone that like you think you don't know anything. You know things,
Yes.
you have the skills. You just got to put it together. Like sometimes people make that analogy when people pray for a cake, but then they get all the ingredients. They don't get the cake itself, but they get the flour, they get the eggs, they get the milk, they get the sugar, they get everything else but the cake itself. Sometimes you're meant to put that cake together, and
Yeah.
that's why you're in that environment. And so that does come with a lot of silence, and
Hmm.
um, sometimes you don't get recognition, sometimes you feel very isolated, but trusting the process is so worth it when you have that light bulb moment where it clicks. And that moment will bring tears to my eyes every time it happens because it's like this work was not done in vain. Like this work was done and it was purposeful and maybe it was silent for a while, but now people see it and people are benefiting from it. And so um, I, was put in a position where I had to learn ergonomics by myself and study it. And I'm reading textbooks from like 1993 to 2002. And so I was born in 1995, and I think I was in kindergarten during 9/11. So you can imagine how far back I had to
Yes.
go to read these things and see what they were saying, and realizing that some of the things that they were trying to prevent are things that we see today. So lots of aha moments
Hmm.
because I had to go through so much groundwork and so much dirty work to figure it out, I understand it for myself 100%. And there's still things for me to learn, but I know it so well now that I can educate universities on it. And so
Mm.
that's what kind of trust in the process looks like. Like, yes, this is very, very dirty work and it's not pretty and it's very stinky, but when the light bulb comes on, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
That's been
There's a comfort that comes up that you're
yeah.
kind of like, yeah, I
Oh, like
know.
that, like you actually kind of breathe for the first time. Like
Yeah.
it's just really comforting to know that your work was not done in vain. Because sometimes you
Yes.
just feel like, what is the point? Why am I doing this? Why? But that lipo moment is so worth it. And so, with lectures, that's another stream of income for me because I get paid to lecture, and so
Yeah.
that's very helpful. That's actually really great at times to get paid for the dirty work. You get the reward at the end.
Yes.
The fruits of my labor, I did get them. I did end up getting them. And then the last one is to just be ready to pivot.
Mm.
And I think that
Hmm.
um, every decision that we make isn't going to be the right one. And pivots don't necessarily have to be very large, drastic movements.
Yes.
So my personal recommendation is to just always keep one foot planted and make small changes. Because sometimes you can be off by like 10 degrees, but you think you have to do like a full 180.
Hmm.
Right. So um, pivoting doesn't mean you always have to start over. It's just really thoughtful adjustments. Keyword thoughtful,
Yes.
planned, You thought about it, it makes sense. Just adjustments that really make sense. And the subtle shifts to me kind of go further, and it also preserves yourself. So you're
Yeah.
not wearing yourself out, you're not losing momentum. You're just making little changes to get on the path that you're supposed to be on.
Just love your approach, because it seems like once that light bulb moment came on, everything is just kind of smooth sailing and you're focused
Mhm.
and I'm going to steal that thoughtful adjustment coin
Yeah.
term that you just talked about. I mean, it's shifts and changes are often referred to as uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But to refer to it as a thoughtful adjustment, there's something about that phrasing that
Mhm.
to me just makes it a smoother ride or
Yeah.
a smoother transition.
It is. And like it's just an adjustment. When you think of things that you adjust, like Christmas trees. My mom is really big on Christmas trees. She always sometimes an adjustment of the bow is just like a little tweak. It's not a
Yeah.
big drastic moment, but typically you stand back from the tree, you think about it, you look at it, you kind of look at where all the ornaments are, and then it's you've thought about it, you've seen what could kind of help it and make it look like what you've envisioned, and you just make that thoughtful adjustment, just a little
Yes.
tweak. So yeah.
And then the point is not to, reach perfection, right? Or
Right.
to kind of get that. It's just to make that adjustment and see what other adjustments you need to make after that.
Yeah, because that's another thing too. When you make one small adjustment, then you can kind of see little other little things that just might need a little twisting, just a
Tweak.
little tweak. Yeah, just a little tweak. So thoughtful adjustments, just making
I
thoughtful.
love it. I know you and I are making perfect sense to each other. I hope
We
we're making
are.
perfect sense to other people.
I know. Oh, goodness.
But okay, so segueing, let's talk about myths or misconceptions. Are there any in your current role as an ergonomist?
Yes. So the first is kind of what I touched on earlier, that ergonomics is a lot more than the desk and the chair
Yeah.
and the mouse. Another one is that it's not limited to people or individuals that have disabilities or that are recovering from injuries. So
Hmm.
a lot of times people think that you have to get carpal tunnel to benefit from ergonomics when there is a preventative element to ergonomics. So, for example, um, if I were to do an assessment for you and you have one of those musculoskeletal disorders and someone that sits next to you doesn't have it, but they have the same setup, I can make
Hmm.
changes in their environment so we can avoid what happened to you to essentially happen to them. So there is a preventative nature to ergonomics.
Yes.
No matter what your occupation is, if you are, a corporate person, or even if you are a stay-at-home parent, you should be thinking ergonomically. So how you sit at your desk and how you maybe pick up your child, or how you walk through the offices, and then also how you may, do things within your home environment or in the gym, or how you pick up a case of water from the grocery store. It's ergonomics everywhere. You should be thinking, and then you can implement it. Um, it's all about the principles because the principles do not change. You just apply it to your setting. And so um, it's just a matter of knowing them, which is why I try to do so much education on it
Hmm.
so people can know what the principles are because they're very straightforward. One is like keep everything in reach. That's
Yes.
pretty straightforward. And you can think
Remember that one in school.
yeah, so you can think from an occupational therapy standpoint, keeping things in reach. If you're in home health, how are the items set up on the sink when you're doing ADLs or, excuse me, IADLs, or if you are working with peds and you're working on core activities, where are the blocks? Can the children reach them? So it's just really
Hmm.
trying to apply it to the different settings.
Yeah.
Um, and then another myth that I would like to debunk just in the profession as a whole is that there are leadership roles and positions for all practitioners across the board. There's an opportunity to because um, we have similar skill sets, but because you didn't maybe get it in school, doesn't mean that you can't get it from life.
Just as you did, right? Kind
Yes.
of went out for that extra, extra learning, that extra training.
Yes.
Well, Asia, this has been just so stimulating, to say the least. So informative, and I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us all about your journey. If any of our listeners were interested in reaching out, is it okay if they do so? And what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. Again, I am open to any questions or any information that I can give. So, back to LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. A lot of people follow me more than they connect with me, and I don't know if there's an etiquette with that with LinkedIn, but you can send a connection if we've never met. You can send me a
I
connection.
mean, you might as well connect, right?
And then I can
I
make sure.
kind of do both. I follow and then I connect.
Yeah,
Because
it's
I
like,
want to just make sure.
yeah, just kind of like testing the waters. But I know that there are limits, or for some cases, with messaging features. So that's why I always recommend just connect with me. I don't, unless you look kind of bodish or Spanish, I'm gonna accept it. And so my name on there is Aja Black, comma CAE, comma COTA. If you look for me, there's probably one that'll pop up. And then for just questions or for like lectures or even trainings and things, then people can email me directly at Aja the COTA, COTA at gmail.com. And so, especially given now referrals are great and I'm available to do those. So,
Yes.
if you need a lecturer or trainings or anything, you know someone that does, please send me an email and I'm happy to connect.
Yay, listen to that, everybody. She's available. Well, thank you again for making yourself available to us. All the
Mhm.
information that you've shared has been so valuable. Thank you so much for being an inspiring guest.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, for even creating this platform for us uncommon practitioners and, opening up the floor for us to give as much information as possible.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Uncommon OT series. Connect with me at www.transitionsot.com. And don't forget to sign up to be part of the Transitions OT community. By doing so, you'll receive my latest compiled list of uncommon OT practice settings, the latest news on mentoring offerings, uncommon OT live events, non-traditional OT resources, and more. You may also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you love this episode, head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts to follow, rate, and leave a review. I also ask you to consider pledging your support to my Passion Podcast project by being a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated. Sending big OT love. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.